I heard you sing the song before. Never heard this version live. So thank you again, once again, for sharing. Good everything, everybody. Dr. Greg Carr, you are muted. Unmute yourself. Yes, no problem. No problem.
Because I was singing along with everybody. So I know we couldn't get no strike for all the YouTube people. That was Red, Black, and Green, which is Roy Ayers, the great ancestors. We ring this bell for Roy Ayers. Indeed. Yeah. Yeah. That's red, black, and green. You think about it, you know what I mean. Roy
Yes.
Edward Ayers Jr.
Yes. Rest in power. And thank you, sir, for your contribution, for all of the people who think, Mary J. Blige was the first. It was like for all of the people who think all of the songs were the first. This gathering that we have every day, because we gather every day. Saturday special is in class with Carr. I had a caller yesterday on Foolishness Friday on the Karen Hunter show on Sirius XM. If you don't know, that's a whole, channel 126. We're talking powers and becomes action Monday through Friday is where I do a thing. Dr. Carr's there Wednesday, Thursday, Friday on Urban View Mornings. The Daniel Favors, Clay Kane. It's a lot. Saturday, Reese. It's a lot of people. Sunday, Eljoy Williams and a whole bunch of other people.
Lou Hut about that time.
Lou Hut, 9 a.m., giving us all of the information we need as well. So I was this caller called in and he said, Karen, I listen to the radio, listen to the shows, all the shows on Urban View. Now there's podcasts. Then I got to do Saturday with Dr. Greg Carr. He said, fire hose. He said, I can't keep up. Can you just slow down? And I was getting ready to respond to him. And Roderick Morrow, who sits with me on Friday, said, he said, no, there's a fire. You need a fire hose. He said, and even if your house ain't on fire, your neighbor's house may be on fire, and the embers can set your house. We need the fire hose. Keep it coming.
Wow.
And I sat there and I said, this is why I love Roger Morrow.
The way
he moved.
Y'all did it. That's the answer.
I said, we do
Roger
need a fire
gave
hose.
the answer.
Thank you. Fire hose away.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. And of course, Karen Hunter is awesome. You mentioned the podcast, but you didn't name it. Y'all got to we need more. That's it. Roger, he solved it. We need a fire hose. They got a fire. They setting everything on fire. We can't do it with a drip.
So, and I wanted to, because we've had this conversation where I was like, okay, can we go back and like just breadcrumb and just, because people aren't used to, and you're like, no.
I'm like, no, I understand. I'll just keep going wherever I am, and then because you're right. It's difficult. How do we force feed?
We don't. And when Roderick said that, everybody's at a place wherever you are. Some people, are slow readers. Some people are slower thinkers. Some people have been addled for, 40, 50 years of being conditioned to, receive information a certain kind of way and regurgitate it a certain kind of way. Critical thinking has been beaten out of a whole lot of us. It's not your fault. We've been taught to fill out little circles on a standardized test as if we're standardized people. And so it's going to take some conditioning, but it's also going to be some willful work on each of our parts to do better, to receive the information and find our space where we can be of service. And everyone's not going to be of service the same way. Everyone shouldn't be Greg Carr. Everyone shouldn't be me. Please don't.
Don't be either one of us.
But find who you are in this moment, because this is a moment in time where your services will be needed. So figure it out. When you're doing your thing on Saturdays, there are things that spark my imagination, and I write down little notes for myself, and then I follow that path. For everyone, find your path. But we're going to keep
all my note cards right here and keep my pencil handy. I'm writing. You see me looking down, I'm writing them because you say something. Among your many gifts is the ability to put things in that's the definition of a proverb. The horse of speech, as it's called in West Africa. You take something large and put it in a place where people can, I got that. No, you don't, but you can understand those 5 words. So now that you're in those 5 words, your mind just opens up. That's a gift. It's a gift you come here with, and it's a gift that can only be honed by training. And that's one of your many gifts. And so I think that's another reason why our conversations are so life-changing. They certainly changed this life, the one that's speaking right now. So again, my gratitude is eternal. And I think I speak for all of us. this has been and continues to be a work. You've been working nonstop forever, but COVID was in that tragic moment. We believe now this is the month that marks the 5th year since we, and this has been a gift. It continues to be a gift for a time such as this.
You don't know in that moment whether or not the choices and decisions that you're making will even have an impact. This is what, I was saying to you, being obedient. I'm not a very obedient person in terms of, somebody could tell me what to do and I'm going to do it. But the obedience of the spirit is something that requires you sitting in that spirit for a minute. And then when the spark happens, you're like, oh, I need to press record because I can't be selfish in this moment. I need everybody, like but that drive to like, let me make sure everybody can hear this. And then how can I duplicate what I do in different ways so that other people can be fed, because not everybody's going to hear my voice. Not everyone's going to receive my way of talking and, my personality. I understand it, but I'm not changing. I'm not changing because I love you. I know, because I was put here to be this. So if it ain't for everybody, I'm gonna give you somebody that you can sit with, So it's like, okay, you don't like that. Okay, Reese gonna cuss you out. All right, maybe you'll like that. Maybe you're not gonna hear that. But Laree gonna come with the voice. She gonna do something different. Maybe you can't hear that. Okay, here's Shauna Renee. Here's Omi. Here's Dr. Carr. Here, so here's Lamont. Okay, maybe Dr. Carr is too much. Lamont's gonna give you something. It's it's that something for everybody, but
it's the community.
It's important that we find and not reject. You ain't got to like me. You ain't got to like, but you got to like something. You got to like
something. Well, you do. Well, we all like something, right? And again, that's one reason why I was thinking about this in the wake of Roy Ayers making transition. We all know everybody loves the sunshine, but at the same time, everybody includes all of us, and everybody also has to recognize that we're all different and there are clusters of sameness among us. So this morning, today rather, and welcome to everybody, Uncle Josh Seneb, life, power, and health. Life, Ankh, you see there, the Ankh ring, yeah. Triliteral and meta nature, 3 symbols together, although put in one, like a Ankh, Uja, which is a symbol as well, a glyph, Uja, and Seneb. Seneb is health. Uja is more like prosperity, not power. Power is was, the was scepter, as in waset, the scepter. But a great greeting and grand rising and good everything, as you coined in that proverbial sense, good everything everywhere. But it, yesterday I was thinking about this brother, and there he is in his classic, in his youthful form there, looking around, the great Roy Ayers. And this is from the New York Times yesterday. Roy Ayers, a vibraphonist who injected soul into jazz, is dead at 84. And we know those terms, soul, jazz. We also know they're meaningless. My man Nick Payton, who was in town last night at Blues Alley, Nick texted me, and I was out of range. I couldn't get there in time to get to Blues Alley. Anytime Nick comes, I am always happy to see my brother. I love that brother. An African son of New Orleans, like a man who inspired him, Louis Armstrong. And of course, we think about Roy. Well, there's so many other people I could talk about, all those lions and lionesses that come out of New Orleans. But at any rate, Howard Hargrove was who I was thinking about, his friend, of course, now an ancestor. And Nick, as we've talked about before, I encourage everybody who is in Knarrative to download that compendium. Nick, of course, recorded on his Afro-Caribbean mixtape the song Kimathi, where he took my voice off of a talk I gave at the School District of Philadelphia many years ago and mixed it into one of his original compositions. Last time I saw Nick, in fact, Payton, was at the Kennedy Center, the now defunct Kennedy Center, where he composed an original score. You could call it opera, I suppose, if you want to talk about original long-form compositions that tell a story, if you want to use that European title. He composed it for the unveiling of a multi-year project on the Mississippi, on the concept of the Mississippi, not just the geography. And Nick composed that piece, tribute to Louis Armstrong, which was flatfoot brilliant. He's a multi-instrumentalist, piano, keyboard, trumpet is what he's best known for, a real son of New Orleans. One time I seen Nick in New Orleans when he wasn't on tour. We were down there for the Association for the Study of Classical African Civilizations conference. I think it was 2017. We were at Dillard University in New York. Shout out to Dillard University and all our HBCUs. New Orleans, not New York. And that was the first and only time that Nick was able to have a face-to-face, touch-to-touch, old head to youngster in real time conversation with the great Randy Weston, the great Garveyite out of Brooklyn by way of the Caribbean. And I'll never forget standing there as they were tuning the piano for Randy Weston, who performed that night, who was one of Dr. Ben's men, Yosef Ben Yakinen, which is why he came down to New Orleans for this. And we're sitting there, and they tuned the piano, and he's sitting there listening with the ear. And Nick Payton comes in because he's from New Orleans. He came over to Dillard, and they just stand there laughing and talking. And who's sitting there just taking it all in, just having a great time, is a person who's a pianist herself. A lot of people might not know, and that's Angie Porter. So it was great to just watch that. And so Nick was in town last night, and I wish I could have gotten over to see him, but I wasn't able to get back in to DC and get over to Blues Alley in time. But I thought about that in the context of Roy Ayers, because his obituary was in the paper yesterday. And Roy Ayers, who said famously that every musician should put something social and cultural in their music, because music isn't just sounds. It communicates a message. And Roy Ayers absolutely did that. And thought about him because Nick Payton does that. And he does that in everything he does. And it was Nicholas Payton who promotes the term BAM. He calls it BAM. If you look on his website, this is a man who controls a great deal of his musical output, of his creative output. He sells his own stuff. He's got his own label, his own platform. He says, musicians should control their craft. And he is a big advocate of BAM. BAM is not the Brooklyn Academy of Music. It is Black American music. But by Black American, he does not mean the descendants of slaves. So some of y'all still got that slave mentality. I'm going to reach inside your soul and pull it out. But at any rate, by BAM, he means that part of Africa that the Africans who were born in the United States of America produce, that connects us to the rest of the African world. And as a chief soldier, as he would put it, for BAM, my man Nick Payton always reminds us that we have a social responsibility, and music is just a piece of that. And so we are human in the world, and everybody loves the sunshine. People think of Roy Ayers, they think of everybody loves the sunshine. Boom, boom, doom, doom, doom. My life, my life, my life, my life. Yes, we know. Of course, Mary J. Blige, Brand Nubian. Of course, you take Roy Ayers out of the world, and a great deal of hip hop just collapses, which is why they would put these headlines in. But it isn't soul music. It isn't jazz music. It isn't hip hop or R&B. Those are labels to move things around to sell. It is, as Nick always reminds us, Payton, Black music. In the case of those Africans who create out of the United States of America, Black American music, BAM. They say, your music is jazz. My music is BAM. Don't do that. And there's Black Caribbean music, and there's Black African music. And so I understand that concept of Blackness the way Nick uses it. Even as I move away from trying to use Blackness as a centering identity, I understand that it exists and it's important. And when you listen to Roy Ayers, again, looking at this obituary, you'll find a lot about Roy Ayers that serves as points of entry. When you hear, they talk about everybody from Erykah Badu and Jill Scott, there's so many others who were influenced by Roy Ayers' music. But when you heard that song that folks in the narrative side heard, and then those who were in the YouTube side, so we didn't get a strike, you can go back and listen to it. If you're not aware of it, not familiar with it, I know many of you are. Red, Black, and Green. That is a song that probably gets the most consistent airplay that I'm aware of in the country, outside of somebody's house or their portable sounds. For my man Baba Kaba soul singer, who has a show on WPFW every Monday afternoon called African Deep Thought. And that's his signature song. So when you hear Red, Black, and Green, come on. When you hear Roy Ayers, red, black, and green. If you think about it, You know what I mean? That's Roy Ayers. And he goes through the colors, you know. Red is for the eastern side. He just goes on through. Red is for the blood we share. Red is for our thousands dead. Red is for our liberty. We fight for our nation. See, red, black, and green. Red, black, and green. If you think about it, you know what I mean. Mm-mm-mm. Green is for the freedom. The green is for the seed of freedom planted in our minds. Mm-mm-mm. Come on now, red, black, and green. If you think about it, Lord have mercy, Lord have mercy, Lord have mercy. Red, black, and green. If you think about it, mm-mm-mm. Black is for our motherland, fighting for the strong black man. Mm-mm-mm. Red, black, and green. But you got to think about it. See, this is the problem. So people love, you know, everybody loves the sunshine. All human beings love the sunshine. There was an article to this week. The scientific, the journalists and the scientists have come up with a well, they haven't come up with. They've revealed what we already knew, that humanity. We know humanity started in Africa, but all of the books that you will learn about, if you're still reading books and things you learn in school, will tell you that we came out of the Great Rift Valley, out of East Africa. And that's true. When you go to South Africa, like, you know, taking students many times to South Africa, go to some place they call the cradle of civilization, the cradle of humanity, not the cradle of civilization. Those of you been there know, you know, I know. Congratulations, Jack. Jack Cole got married last week. Word on the streets. That's a beautiful thing. Congratulations to you and your partner. And you go to South Africa and they take you to this place and you go, we went and, you know, you go up in the cave and you know, this is where humanity first came. Okay. Well, the scientists revealed today something that has been discussed among scientists for many years. And now it's becoming more popular. The article was published this week, one of the scientific journals. That says, you know, West Africa too. And African people were like, y'all just waking up? Oh, y'all want some breakfast? Okay. But the point is this. Of course. In other words, human beings came out of Africa, but it wasn't just East Africa, it wasn't just South Africa, it was also West Africa, also Central Africa. And the reason why they're just now saying West Africa is because the evidence, you know, this is the West has to have this material evidence-based thing exclusively. You need material evidence, but you don't need it exclusively. This is, you know, you got spirit, you got common sense, and you got ability. You know, if you think about it, you know what I mean. But they were able to see some tools in the sediment and some undisturbed sites, and they begin now to see some evidence now, some beyond carbon dating. Now they got other forms of dating. They say, oh yeah, oh, human activity goes back here. Oh wow, wait, this is several 100,000 years. So it wasn't just 20,000. No, it wasn't. No. So it's very important to understand that in that context. So, but that everybody that comes out of Africa and populates the world loves the sunshine, because that is where we come from as a species. So we know that everybody loves the sunshine, but red, black, and green. You see, if you think about it, you know what I mean. So we'll move on with that frame from our brother, from Roy Ayers. We'll move on from that frame from our brother, Roy Ayers. It's important to do that. Roy Ayers, born in 1940 in Los Angeles, made transition 2025 this week. A student of the great Samuel Rodney Brown. Those of you who went to Thomas Jefferson High School, if you know Thomas Jefferson High School in LA, you know Samuel Rodney Brown, born in 1908, made transition in 1991. Samuel Rodney Brown was the longtime music teacher, one of the first 3 Black public school teachers in the Los Angeles school district. And it's interesting because, you know, they give some of Samuel Brown's students here in the obituary include Dexter Gordon, Charlie Mingus. I mean, and so, you know, when you read up on Samuel Brown, what you'll find is Samuel Rodney Brown, what you'll find is that this man had so many different types of students, so many different students, and just a very powerful figure. And the list is astonishing. And his commitment was to public school. He taught in the high schools for decades. And, he was a professional musician, professionally trained, and he was a master teacher. So when you pull on Roy Ayers, Samuel Rodney Brown falls out. This is genealogy. You understand? And there are many other things we could talk about, but I won't get into it. There's a long History Makers interview. Wasn't done by Kwaku Larry Crow, one of the few that we can't say, but there's an interview with Roy Ayers where he talks about him, and there's a Tiny Desk concert. And he says he liked to play Red, Black, and Green a lot because of the culture. He said he particularly liked to open with it in the UK, in the United Kingdom. He said after the Black consciousness movement really surged in the 1970s and 80s in England, he found Red, Black, and Green to be one of the songs that, they really kind of, they moved to all his music, but Red, Black, and Green was one of their favorite songs. And so here we are in the sixth hell week of the resurgence of Donald John Trump. It's a beautiful thing. It's a terrible thing. Both of those things, beautiful and ugly too. As Langston Hughes might say, we are beautiful and ugly too as a species, and everybody loves the sunshine. But let's be very clear. We are in the sixth week of people putting blocks between the sun and the rest of the species we call human. Those of you who are new, and there are a lot of people every week, people are coming. I am encouraged, inspired by the continuing punch through of the noise to begin to focus and think differently and be in community differently. So if you are new to this space, all the people who are signing up now, realizing that all else is the open sea except Black owned and Black controlled media, and that includes social media. So while Isaac Hayes III has been able to raise all of this money, millions of dollars now, to capitalize fan base. So people say, what are we going to do? We're going to blue sky. We don't leave Twitter is excellent. You got fan base. You got fan base. Invest. And you can invest in fan base with $399 a share. You can invest in fan base. It's looking better and better every day, huh? Since your master don't want you. Yeah, what did all Caesar say? The day of the Geechee is gone. Can't afford you no more. Well, your master don't want you no more. So come on home, as Isaac Hayes would say. And then there is narrative. As more and more people subscribe to Knarrative and come into the archive and everything that we have done, thanks to that vision, Prof. Thank you. And thanks to the Knarrative team that is able to be supported because people are coming in and subscribing. That frees up people to use their gifts. All of our people, whether it be Reyes, whether it be Carl, whether it be all of the folks who are involved, all the people who are behind the scenes developing all the things that will enable us to access the type of information and be in community that will help us free ourselves. That's where those dollars go. This is not a profit model. As Professor Hunter as you always remind us, this is a model of taking those dollars and repurposing them to free us, to move us together, to free people's time so they can work on the exclusive work of freeing us. And that's very critical. So as people are coming in and into the social media dimension, yes, talking to each other in real time, as people are doing right now. If you're in Nubia, and all the folks in Nubia, as I have the chat pulled up here, and I'm looking over here, the narrative. Yeah, they still hate you. That's what Curtis say. Thank you. Yes, thank you, Curtis, for reminding me. Isaac Hayes, he did. Yeah. Well, Michelle, that's the thing. We're all human in the world. He said Isaac Hayes Jr. came with his sister real nasty just for likes. Not sure if I can get with him. Well, this is the difficulty, because once we look at each other very closely as humans in the world, nobody's going to get with anybody. I think we're very clear about that. People won't even get with themselves. So the question becomes, how much can we figure out so that we can be together? And that requires, I think, in many ways, immersing in something beyond the individual. It becomes immersing in the concept, in the idea, because everybody's not going to be a healer. We're coming back to that in a brief second. Thank you, Dr. Wilkinson. Courtney Wilkinson is just a genius, a master teacher, an educator, educator administrator, but, first and foremost, a sister, a friend, a comrade, a thinker. And what you did Monday night in office hours in Nubia, that social media platform that is owned by Black folk, owned by us, controlled by us, built by us, was just very powerful.
I just wanted to drop one thing.
Please.
As we're navigating again the fire hose of or the inundation of people coming with their little grubby hands for you to come do things, I just want us to center tree and fruit. You know a tree by the fruit that it bears. And
Yeah.
also as individuals, are you being fruitful? Are the spaces that you're, because money's currency, so it's a flow, it's in and out. So if you're pouring in, are you getting something out of it? And if it's yes, then do that and say less. If it's not feeding you, then knock the dust from your feet and keep it pushing. But we are not going to spend a whole lot of time litigating and complaining about what people are and are not doing. Let's just be fruitful and multiply, and knowing a tree by the fruit that it bears and being discerning about where we are spending our time and energy. Are you being fed? If you're not being fed, there's no obligation. If
Right.
you're not feeding, then you're the problem. So that's all. I
Yeah.
just want to say that.
No, that's critical. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for saying that, because it is a reminder. And this is, again, why we opened up this morning with Roy Ayers, Red, Black, and Green. Every time someone makes transition, it's an occasion to sit and meditate upon what they did in the world. And Roy Ayers continues to feed. He's fed so many, and he feeds so many more. His son, who he didn't raise, who grew up away from him, wrote a memoir. Y'all can go and find it. Because Roy Ayers didn't write a memoir, but his son did. And he wrote about searching for his father. And he wrote about watching. In fact, the book opens with him in a theater watching Straight Outta Compton. And the Dr. Dre character is riding down the street, and he's being inspired by this music. And then they do a close-up of album covers. And Roy Ayers' son writes that, he says, as they were zooming in on the various album covers that inspired Dr. Dre, I didn't need to be told what that cover was that they passed by that was black and white, which is my father's face, Roy Ayers. And in the corner, the upper left-hand corner, 3 words. Everything else is black and white, a black and white photograph, still capture of a photograph. And then red and red, black and black, green and green. That's the 1973 album from Roy Ayers, Ubiquity, Red, Black, and Green, where you hear the music that ultimately, among the other many albums that he recorded, including, I think it was 11 with Herbie Mann, and then Polydor, so many other albums, of the 4 dozen or so that Roy Ayers put out over the course of his professional life, that holds up so much of hip hop. And son was like, yeah, I knew that was my father, but he didn't know his father. So if you start looking at the personalities, you get caught up. But again, you got to think about the concepts. You got to think about the principles beyond. And as you say, Prof, are you feeding? Are you being fed? And again, if you think about it, you know what I mean. So yeah, you think about it. That red, black, and green is a concept. So I'm thinking about that here. And if you go back to 255, or in class session 255, which was entitled Hell Week. It was the first week of the Blitz. As Steve Bannon said, they're going to just throw everything against the wall. This is their fire hose, but you'll see their fire hose is really a trickle. It's really a trickle. But the idea that, and they're trying to piss fire, but ultimately their hose is exhaustible. Ours is inexhaustible because it has a loop. It has an inexhaustible source. You see, that source, when someone makes transition, the ancient Egyptians would say, may their soul rise like Ra, or rise like Re, eternally, forever, Nehet or Jet, eternity, or, permanence, in other words, impermanence. And the concept of Re is a word that translates as the sun, S-U-N. May she rise like the sun. May he rise like the sun. May they rise like Ray. May they rise like Ra forever. Because Ra is every day. As Makeda Kumasi's grand auntie Nzinga Radabisha would say, Ra is every day. The sun is every day. Everybody loves the sunshine because the sun loves everybody. You understand? It ain't one way. It's reciprocal. Our source is inexhaustible. It is the sun. And when we make transition, we rise like the sun forever, in perpetuity, forever. We rise like the sun. We rise like the sun. And so that should make us impervious to anything that would block the sun. So our source is inexhaustible, and we'll talk more about that. As I say, Dr. Wilkerson, thank you, sis, because you, after we got off Monday night, for those of you not in Nubia, and if you are in Narrative and subscribe and don't come to office hours or don't come to any of the live real-time conversations we have 7 days a week, really, at this point, but particularly through the week, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and of course, Monday nights. Well, you may have missed it, but I would encourage you to go back and look at that conversation that we had on Monday night, because every time Courtney comes in, she drops jewels, and it sent me back to my shelf in the other room to get my copy of The Healers. Y'all see that? The Healers. And this is where I want to start today, because Dr. Courtney Wilkerson is a healer, and there are a lot of healers involved, but everybody can't be a healer. And she's making this point Monday night. And I won't go through the plot of The Healers, but there's a moment about maybe a quarter of the way through the book where, a quarter, no, about close to a third of the way through the book, where one of the main characters, the kind of through line character, Densu, is a young man, West Africa, what we would call Ghana now, who has this spirit where he's very brilliant at everything he does. He has a natural gift. We all have natural gifts. His natural gifts are kind of more outwardly facing. He athletically, he can think. I mean, he's way able to navigate terrain, and he doesn't like competition in the sense that he can win all the races, swimming and running and searching and this kind of thing. But he doesn't like the idea that everybody can't be included and somebody got to win. Okay, I understand that, but that's not really my goal. This kind of thing. I want to be a healer. That's his thing in life. I want to heal people. I want to bring people together. And so he encounters these master healers. And in the conversations that he's having with them, he has this yearning, this craving, and it comes to a point where he's with this elder, and he says, he comes to this healer, and I'm just going to read from this. And again, thank you, Courtney. I love you, sis. That's really, Courtney's we're going to be back in Kemet. She was in Kemet with us a couple of years ago. Last year, she'll be back this year. We're going to Kemet. This is going to be an incredible journey that we're going to be on. Prof will be there, and me, and so many others. It's going to be really something. Courtney's coming. But this is what he writes. Damfo is the healer that Densu encounters, and they live in the forest. So he got to leave the town and go to the forest looking for this man. He comes into town every once in a while. I don't get too deep into the plot. But he says this. He's saying, everybody sees stuff, but you have to focus to be able to see certain things if you want to be a healer. And so the young man says, why can't others see and hear? The elder says they could if they prepared themselves to see and hear. Can't people see and hear naturally? What do you mean naturally? The healer asked the boy. Without preparation. No one sees without preparation. Not the healer's kind of seeing. Yet you made healing sound very natural. It is, agreed the healer. And preparation isn't unnatural. It is also natural. The young man says, but children, no one prepares them to see anything. Adults do that, the healer said. A child has eyes for seeing light and shade and color, but seeing for ordinary people isn't just that, is it? It's knowing what the light and shade and color go to make. Recognition is what people call seeing. What healers mean by seeing isn't just that. Red, black, and green. If you think about it, that's 5 words that if you think about it, you'll know what I mean. You got to stop and think about it. You see, it's very important to understand that. Anyway, let's continue. He says, is hearing the same? The young man says, more so, the elder says. The ear hears sound. When a child understands language, she hears more than sound. The meaning is in the arrangement of sounds. So everybody hears sounds. Randy Weston used to say, man, love that brother. Baba Randy would say, all I'm trying to do is speak back to the sound I hear in conversation. So when he would go to the Guanaba people, hold on, I guarantee you, Baba Randy Weston, The Autobiography of Randy Weston, African Rhythms. That's Randy Weston right there. I love that brother. Whoo, man. Randy Weston, Mr. Randy Weston. Sign that book for me. Anyway, Randy Weston would say, when I go sit in the desert in North Africa with the Guanaba people, these Africans, when I sit with them, let me see, can I find, here he is, a lot of pictures. There he is in tour in Gabon. He was all over Africa. Here he is in West Africa, the African Rhythms Club in Tangier. Man, I could do this all day, but I'm not going to do. Here he is in Brooklyn, 12 years old. Look at that man, Randy Weston. But anyway, Baba Randy would say, when I would be, here we go. Here we are in Tangier, Morocco, with some musicians, the Guanaba. There he is right there with them, right? What Randy Weston would say is, when I'm with them, we in the desert. He said, the first time I went out there with them, I'm going as a musician, I'm listening. He said, start playing these rhythms, these African rhythms, these drums. He said 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, 6, 8, 10, 15 hours in, we're not on the earth anymore. We're somewhere else. And you had them cool ass Brooklyn dudes, are Africans, parents Garveyites, but Brooklyn, you know. Yeah, brother, I tell you, you know, we were somewhere else, man. We were somewhere else. Talking with their hands, you know, we were somewhere else, this elder. Just sitting there chilling. Transported. He said, my whole life as an artist, as a musician, was to hear nature. And what I realized is they're hearing nature, and I've been hearing nature as a musician all along. And so I'm out here in the desert, in the dark, with this African rhythm, and they're simply repeating what they're hearing from the wind and from the movement of the sand. And that's what I'm doing. We were born into these rhythms, and all musicians are doing is trying to speak back to what they hear. One of our favorites, and I think about my brother Mario Beatty, who loved Randy Weston. He and I, we went to the funeral. Once Mario got into community with Randy Weston, he just, man, you know, Mario is like that, particularly with music. Like if Norman Connors is anywhere within a 1,000,000-mile radius, he going to the show. That's just how, and he feels the same way about Randy Weston. And the two of them just together was really something, because Randy Weston was a scholar of everything, not just his music. That's why, you know, he really, you know, we all fell in together. He was with us in the Association for the Study of Classical African Civilization, and had been with Dr. Ben and Dr. Carr for decades. And so, among many others. But Baba Neil Clark, Mama Fatima, his quote unquote widow, but his partner, all of the whole family, and we talked about them before. If you go in the compendium, you could see about that. But I think about Mario because when every once in a while Mario would show his students at Howard the documentary on Sheikh Anta Diop. It was done by our brother out of Senegal, who we've talked about that as well. But the soundtrack for that documentary, Randy Weston composed it, and there's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful piece of music that I'm going to have to now play on repeat the day that I'm thinking about it, because it's in my spirit even as I thought about it now, called 3 Pyramids and the Sphinx. Dun, 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 dun. Randy. It's like you're going through the desert. It's like Sheikh Anta Diop's theme song, although he got a song attributed to Sheikh Anta Diop on his album Kepara. Oh my God. All right, now, come on now. We got to listen. I'm coming back to Armand. Never really left him. The point is, you got to be able to hear. And what Randy Weston is saying, I have to listen to everything around me. And now my music is just speaking back to that. I want you to think about that when you think about music. If you're listening to music and it's not speaking life, it's not speaking back to that thing, it's communicating pain and trauma, which is an experience that Armand talks about here. We're going to talk about that in a minute. If it's communicating trauma, that doesn't mean it's not communicating reality, but it's also communicating a diminished part of reality. You got to sit and listen. Red, black, and green. If you think about it, you know what I mean. Red is for all right. So, Ayikwe Armand and the Healers, that Courtney reminded us of on Monday night. The young man says, hearing the same, the elder said more so. The ear hears sound. When a child understands language, the language of music, the language of speech, the language that requires us to focus, they hear more than sound. The meaning is in the arrangement of sounds. Young man says, what is the healer's preparation for hearing and seeing? The answer is a matter of years, the elder says. 3 years to start with, but in truth, the preparation is endless. And of course, Courtney reminded us of Amadou Hampate Ba, who we've been reading in Nubia in the fourth of our conceptual categories, the Africana Studies framework, social structure, governance, ways of knowing, the third category. Ways of knowing. We've been talking about that, really, the third, not the fourth category. And those ways of knowing it require us to focus. One of the things we think about in terms of human expertise is passing it on from generation to generation to generation. And part of that work is being able to be prepared to hear. Everybody hears sounds, but language, method, process, protocol, as Angie Porter writes about it as she develops Africana legal studies, and here, the preparation, which the young man says, does a healer know languages others don't know? The elder says, you may want to understand it that way. You know how full of sound the world is. Some of these sounds we are taught to understand. Most we don't understand, ever. In the universe, there are so many signs. A few we understand, the way farmers know what clouds mean and fishermen understand stars, but most signs mean nothing to us, because we aren't prepared to understand them. The healer trains their eyes so they can read signs. Their training is of the ears, so they can listen to sounds and understand them. The preparation is also of the nostrils. Life and death have their smells. Ooh. It is of the tongue and the body's ability to feel. After their training, the healer walks through the same world every person walks through, but they see signs others don't see. They hear sounds others don't hear. The same tree that just stands there dumbly to everyone, to the healer, its leaves have things to say. The healer learns the meaning of the river's sound, the sounds of the forest's animals, and when they need the curing spirit from a plant, if their eyes are well prepared, they may see from a great distance some small stein of the leaf that is ready to be taken. They're talking here about healing, how you bring people back from sickness. He said, I can walk through the forest and I can see. Now I'm thinking about George Washington Carver in Tuskegee saying, I get up in the morning. Yeah, I'm a trained scientist. I got degrees in chemistry. Y'all all know me for my innovations. But they say, well, how did you know that that could do that? He said, because the plant told me. Most people say, man, that man is a clairvoyant, a spirit. He's crazy. Yeah, no, I've been trained to hear. I'm very spiritual. I read my Bible every morning. I pray, and then I get up and I walk. I come to the garden alone when the dew is still on the roses. I can come through here. I can see what that is. I think about Aya Anelli, who talks about this all the time when she's working in her garden. I can see what that is. And I'm taking these children. She's taking her grand nephew and grandniece out now. They out there in the garden. I'm going to show you this. And I want you to feel that. Now you dig in that ground. You feel till you feel for that tuber. And then you pull it out. Okay, what color is it and why? You don't know why. I'm going to help you understand why. But I needed you to feel that first. You 6 years old. You 3 years old. You 4 years old. And in a minute, you're going to be 60 and 40 and 30. And in a minute, you're going to be 80 and 90. And you're going to be out here like I'm out here with you. This whole process of preparing people and training people. And Aikwe Arma is writing here in The Healers about this process. And I'm going to put this book down in a minute. But I encourage y'all, if you haven't read it, came out in 1978 with Heinemann Press, but he got all his copyrights back. So if you want this book, you ain't getting it from white publishers. You got to get it from Per Ankh, his publishers. Oh, yeah, Wanda. Yeah, Karen. That was a song. Everybody loved that song, right? Everybody loves that song. Everybody loved the sunshine, But he goes on. I won't go through the rest of this. I want to come to this moment, though, about trauma. And he said, Damfo, the elder, the healer, said, it's not enough for the one who would be a healer to have a healer's nature. Beyond that, they need training, preparation. So part of this is you come to this planet Courtney on Monday night was talking about the Ori. Those of you who are Yoruba initiates, or the Ori, the head. He said, you come with a certain gift. You come back from where we came from with a certain predisposition. You can call it talent. You can call it gift. You can call it being, however you want to call it. So, but then you need preparation to elicit that. So everybody has that. But then the question is, can you be prepared to hear? So the young man goes on and says, is it hard? The elder says, infinitely so. The youngster says, what does it consist of? The elder says, we don't talk about it just to talk, said Danfo evenly. The only people who need to discuss a healer's training are those who actually undergoing it. What makes it so hard? Many things. For one thing, the healer devotes themselves to inspiration. They also live against manipulation. Key words in this book: inspiration. So, Prof, when you were talking in the beginning, in a moment about, how we feel inspired, and instructed. I talk a lot about being inspired and being instructed. We are drawn to certain things. And imagine the thing. That's why I always, with young people, I will ask them, what did you want to be as a child? What do you want to be now? Why did it change, if it changed? And then people start eliciting, well, this is what I wanted to do. And then I thought I couldn't make any money. This is what I wanted to do. And then they told me I couldn't do it. This is what I wanted to do, but then I tried it and it was hard. So I kind of put it down. We live in a society, as you say, this is a capitalist society, this proxy society. And because of that, people get beaten out of their dreams. I have no problem with Elon Musk, who clearly came here with certain gifts. When he's running around with all that money and can't buy a t-shirt to cover his stomach, jumping up and down. I get the enthusiasm. You came here with that. But then once you came here, you fell into a white nationalist society, a bored society, a funky ass, dehumanizing, shrinking society where your mama and daddy poured into you hatred. So all that gift you came here with is now poured into toying with other people. And in moments when you feel unbridled joy, I don't begrudge you that. That's a beautiful thing. Everybody loves the sunshine, but let's be very clear. You're a white nationalist. So as long as that's in the world, red, black, and green, if you think about it, you know what I mean. The whole point is that you're not going to let us enjoy the sunshine. So we got to remove the block. I'm sorry. It doesn't pain me because that pain has been calloused over by years of experience. So there's a nominal human pain I might feel at the threshold, but that moves back very quickly, red, black, and green. If you think about it, oh, you'll know what I mean too, sir. But the whole point is that in that process, there is a moment where our gifts are shrunken by the things we experience. Inspiration allows us to dissolve those blockages. So if you're feeling inspired, be inspired. Kendrick Lamar does a song that's inspirational. Great. That's inspiring. Everybody doing the dance now. I saw Jasmine Crockett doing the dance before she went into the federal legislature. And as Al Green raised his cane and walked out, he didn't get eye contact from any of them people. Joe Nagusa sitting behind him, Jasmine Crockett as he came up the aisle. But then Jasmine got up and walked out too. Before she went in there, she did a little video dancing to the Kendrick Lamar. I even seen Henry Gates. And Prof, you were laughing about that. You said, oh, no, yeah, Gates felt the inspiration. Everybody loved the sunshine. And one thing about Henry Louis Gates, if he sees that's where black people are going, he's going to run like hell to get in front of it and say, I'm the leader. It's not unusual. Like that line is often repeated, that dicta from the French Revolution, where they say Robespierre was in the cafe drinking coffee. And as they went to storm the Bastille, Robespierre was like, oh, I got to go. Somebody said, where are you going? He said, well, those are my people. I am their leader. The whole point is that everybody can feel inspiration, but that's not enough. You got to then receive instruction. He goes on and he says, Dentsu says, I think I understand inspiration, but manipulation? The elder says this, the healer, he says, manipulation is this. He says, it's a disease, a popular one. It comes from spiritual blindness. If I'm not spiritually blind, I see your spirit. I speak to it if I want to invite you to do something with me. If your spirit agrees, it moves your body and your body acts. What'd you just say, Prof? If it's not for you, okay. But if it's for you, come on. He says, that's inspiration. But if I'm blind to your spirit, I see only your body. Then if I want you to do something for me, I force or trick your body into doing it, even against your spirit's direction. Oh, Some of y'all at work right now and just hit something. Something hit you in your soul. Y'all better get to healers. He goes on and says, that's manipulation. Manipulation steals a person's body from its spirit, cuts the body off from its own spirit's direction. The healer is a lifelong enemy of all manipulation. The healer's method is inspiration. Young man says, why did you say the healing people isn't your real work? Did I tell you that? Donful said, asked, puzzled. You didn't tell me, but, and then this goes on to another platinum story, but I want to go to this piece here. It says, we heal people, individuals. That's part of our work, but it isn't all. It isn't even the greater part of it. The whole of it concerns the effort to find a word threatened to exasperate him, but he breathed deep, smiled, and said with an air of giving up, wholeness. Everybody loves the sunshine. Those who learn to read the signs around them and to hear the language of the universe reach a kind of knowledge healers call the shadow. The shadow, because that kind of knowledge follows you everywhere. When you find it, it's not difficult at all. It says there are two forces, unity, red, black, and green. Everybody loves the sunshine. Unity and division, he writes. He says, the first creates unity. The second destroys. It's a disease, disintegration. I'm sorry, I keep coming back to this because it is the currency of the moment. It is not new. It's just a new label. We are not descendants of slaves. That's division. When you weaponize it, not like Nick Payton would say, Black American music is part of a global Africana, but I'm this, not that. Who taught you that? As Malcolm X would say, who taught you to hate yourself? So this question of unity is a serious thing, red, black, and green. If you think about it, you know what I mean. He goes on and says, it is the first unity that gives healing work its strength. Think of it, healing an individual person. What is that but restoring a lost unity to that individual's body and spirit? A people can be diseased the same way. A people, a group. He says those who need naturally to be together but are not, are they not a people sicker than the individual body disintegrated from its soul? Sometimes a whole people needs healing work, not a tribe, not a nation. Tribes and nations are just signs that the whole is diseased. The healing work that cures a whole people is the highest work, far higher than the cure of a single individual's. This is critical. And as Courtney was saying on Monday night, this is the theme of all of Ikwe Armah's work. If you read all of his work, particularly as he gets older and right, oh my God, Kemet, Osiris Rising, The Resolutionaries, his latest novel, his epistolary work, in other words, his kind of nonfiction work, his essay work, and I'm just using these divisions, really there are distinctions without a difference, because he's putting into this character the same language he puts into the eloquence of the scribes, the same thing he puts into remembering the dismembered continent, meaning Africa. All of these things speak to unity, red, black, and green, if you think about it. You know what I mean? The young man asked, are health and unity the same then? To healers, yes, Damphel said. There's health when everything that should work together works together. Take the single person. If the body and soul are working together, the mind thinks I should do this. The will decides I will do it. The muscle tenses itself to help the will, and the hand does what the mind has thought. Everything works together. But say there's a bone broken in the body. The mind may think something, the will may desire it, but when the muscle tries to move the hand, there are two pieces of the broken bone pushing against each other, fighting each other instead of working together. People want to believe in the United States of America. They want to believe in the American dream. They want to believe that America is the greatest country in the history of the world. They want to believe that we're better than this. Yeah, all of that's a beautiful belief, and everybody loves the sunshine, but the nation state as a concept can't hold that. It is a broken bone in the journey of humanity. The nation state is a disease. The nation state is a cancer. And it kills not just individuals, but it kills communities. You understand? Those lines on a map are death. Check out the Job say you should get rid of all those lines. Ikwe Armah say you should get rid of all those lines. Kwame Nkrumah say you got to get rid of all those lines. Miriam Makeba say you got to get rid of all those lines. You got to think about it differently. Think about those lines as breaks in your bones. He goes on and he says that there are diseases, there are worse diseases needed healing. When one person in a community, body and soul, clashes with another individual in the same community, that too is disease. But there was a piece that I wanted to get. Here we go. I'm going to stop with this and we're going to keep going in the context. So I'll keep my eye on the clock. He says, the events that have shattered our people were not simply painful events. They were disasters. They were strange, unnatural catastrophes like human trafficking, like colonialism. Those who survived them could only survive in part because they found ways to forget the catastrophes. This is the impact of trauma. This is where I'm going to end for a moment. When you're still close to past dangers that threaten to wipe you out, even remembrance pains you. Our people forgot a lot of things in order to survive. We even went beyond forgetfulness. To forget thoroughly the shattering and the dispersal of a people that was once whole, we have gone so far as to pretend we have always been these silly little fragments each calling itself a nation. Let me read that again. To forget thoroughly the shattering and the dispersal of people that was once whole, we have gone so far as to pretend that we have always been these silly little fragments, each calling itself a nation. 1619 Project. We have always been these silly fragments calling each other, each calling itself a nation, Nigerians, or for that matter, Africans from the United States. We have always been these silly little fragments, each calling itself a nation, descendants of slaves. We have always been these silly little fragments, each calling itself. The pain was so difficult that to survive that pain, we forced a forgetfulness. They made us not speak our language. They made us forget. No, that's not possible. In the short term, it might look like that, but as you recover your self-conscious awareness, as you listen and hear, you realize they never were able to do that. Our survival was not because we assimilated, but because we did not. Our natural predisposition is unity, red, black, and green. That's new. The red, the black, and the green as symbols, Garvey's symbols that were absorbed by Randy Weston's parents and then passed on to him, that were absorbed by Roy Ayers, that were put into a song. The red, the black, and the green combination is new. The body, the healing, the community, the people is not new. Are you crazy? Like, we were once together and then we got separated. They didn't do nothing to us. But that trauma, to survive it, I'm going to read that one more time. That paragraph, he says, the events that shattered our people were not simply painful events. They were disaster. So they were strange, unnatural catastrophes. Those who survived them could only survive in part because they found ways to forget the catastrophes. When you're still close to past dangers that threaten to wipe you out, even remembrance pains you. The social structures that we are in right now are still too close. They're still too close. You know what draws us? Al Green shook his cane and walked out, passing the congresswoman from WrestleMania who came in there in a Ric Flair fur 2 years ago, woo, yelling at Joe Biden, next to the chick in the conceptual cocktail dress from Colorado, Bobo, yelling, wah, wah. Between them, the consensual manservant from Florida, who thinks one day he might be the governor, Byron Donalds looking. Nobody gets put out. Al Green, 77 years old, raises his cane, a man who went through Jim and Jane Crow in Louisiana. They put him out. Then they come, they're going to censure him. Why? Because you niggas can't talk in public. The MAGA Muppet, smirk on his face, backbencher from that same state of Louisiana who nobody knew, who they elevated and put as the tip of the spear because he's a simple-minded little guy, whose faith tradition is a gnarling little fascist faith, whose whole concept of self is built on dissembly and fracture, a broken bone in the larger body of humanity. Mike Johnson. Simple name conveying something far more sinister. Banging his little wooden gavel, next to him a parvenu, a hillbilly, writing an elegy not for himself or his family, but for the whole funky broken bone called United States of America, only he doesn't know it yet. With his barely past 5 o'clock shadow hair covering his insecurity. J.D. Vance, banging their little wood. saying this man must be driven, hiding behind the language that they've been provided by their staffers. And the next day, they're going to censure him, Al Green. Oh, yeah. And instead of standing in the well of the federal legislature and singing love and happiness. See, if I throw them out, I'm not singing We Shall Overcome. It conveys the wrong sense. That ain't the right song. You're not listening to nature. Go on, sing something else. Something's going wrong. Someone's on the phone. 3 o'clock in the morning. In other words, sing something. What the hell are they doing? Talking about how she can make it right. See, that been me. I'm gonna sing something. What is he doing? I don't care. Let's sing something else. Love and happiness. Love and happiness. I ain't never singing We Shall Overcome. I've sung it many times. I've sung it in Selma, where Fire Rose Teray and Hank Sanders and everybody is gathering this weekend for the Selma Bridge Jubilee. I've sung it there. It's a beautiful song. But you know what? If you want to sing a song from that period, I ain't mad at We Shall Overcome. If you want to sing a movement song, as I stood the last time I was in Selma at the events leading to the Bridge Selma Crossing, stood next to the great Charles Neblett, Chuck Neblett, the elder, one of the SNCC singers. And I said, Chuck, before we leave, brother, can y'all hit one verse of Governor Wallace? Because I want to stand here next to you and sing it with you. Well, I read in the paper, just the other day. That may be my favorite song, because Chuck Neblett said we were youngsters marching from Selma to Montgomery to the state capitol. They're on the march today. They're doing it over the next few days, and they'll cross the bridge on Monday in Selma when they come back. But the Selma to Montgomery march, very important. Next weekend, we're going to be down at the Fred Gray Institute. They're having their symposium in Montgomery, Alabama. So, inshallah, as the Muslims would say, then, we'll be doing in class from there. We'll be navigating out in the Nubian streets. But I thought about that standing next to Chuck Neblett in March, 5 years ago, just before COVID shut down the world, down there in Alabama. Chuck, y'all gonna sing Governor Wallace. They were singing anyway. I'm standing up there with them. I said, I get a chance to do something I never thought I would be able to be there. These guys are my hero. Let's sing it. Chuck Neblett said, we as kids, we were young people, teenagers and 20-somethings, and we did the Selma to Montgomery march. We got to Montgomery, we standing behind Dr. King, we looking out over all them people, all them thousands of people. And I said, shit, Wallace, the governor of Alabama, Wallace can't put all of us in jail. And we wrote Governor Wallace a doo-wop, because that's what we were singing at the time, Black American music, the doo-wop. Well, I read in the paper, shoo-doo, be-doo, be-doo, just the other day, shoo-doo, be-doo, be-doo. That freedom fighters, shoo-doo, be-doo, be-doo, they were on their way, shoo-doo, be-doo, be-doo, they coming by bus, shoo-doo, be-doo, be-doo. You gonna close the bus station, man? You don't know us. And the airplane too, shoo-doo, be-doo, be-doo. You would even walk, shoo-doo, be-doo, be-doo, if we would ask you to, shoo-doo. And then hit the chorus. Oh, Governor Wallace, oh yeah, you never can jail us all. Oh, Governor Wallace, oh yeah, segregation's bound to fall. Shoo-doo, be-doo, be-doo, shoo-be-doo, be-doo, be-doo. I love that song, Governor Wallace. See, if I was standing there in the well, I'm not singing We Shall Over. Although I understand, I ain't mad at you. I understand it. John Lewis, one of the last things he did before he made transition, standing in the middle of Black Lives Matter Plaza next to the mayor of Washington, D.C., on the painting that says Black Lives Matter in the street on 16th Street. That same mayor now saying that she going to take it up because they done told her to take it up, and they're going to put murals everywhere else. And she trying to go along and get along. You stood next to John Lewis, who got his ass beat on that bridge, and you gave it up. I understand. It's pragmatic. It's principle pragmatism, as I've heard some people talk about in recent memory. You gotta be principled, but you gotta be pragmatic. Yeah, were they pragmatic on the Edmund Pettus Bridge? John Lewis getting his ass beat. One of the last things he did was say, I want to go stand here on this sign I don't care what people say about the symbolism and not the symbolism. The man put his life on the line for everybody. Are you going to take it up voluntarily? Governor Wallace, you never can jail us all. Oh, Governor Wallace, segregation got to fall. Everybody loves the sunshine. But you know what? That same John Lewis met Malcolm X in East Africa when they were traveling through Africa on. Julian Bond was with them, and Fannie Lou Hamer was with them, and Harry Belafonte put the money together. And then he met John Lewis and Malcolm X standing there. Why? Well, those two have different political philosophies. Here come Bill Clinton. Well, you know, our Stokely Carmichael went a different way. Bill, social structure, shut your ass up, red, black, and green. If you think about it, you'll know what I mean. But guess what? Maybe this is not for you. You're a broken bone, Bill. You and all your soft white nationalist friends picking the most inoffensive to white people person to give the response to Donald Trump on Tuesday night. I understand why you picked Elise Slotkin to get a response, but black people is like, we'll do what we have to do, but let's be very clear, red, black, and green. If you think about it, you know what I mean. So they put Al Green, they're going to censor Al Green. And you singing, we shall overcome. Because the pain of where we are is so great that you've forgotten that the chords in that song is what draws you to the song. The message of the song, not so much in the short-term sense. He goes on and he says again, those who survive the catastrophes could only survive in part because they found ways to forget the catastrophes. This is what Dan Black is writing about in The Coming. When you're still close to past dangers that threaten to wipe you out, even remembrance pains you. Our young people, I don't want no more slave songs. I don't want no more slave movies. I understand, because the remembrance pains you because you think your history started with that pain. He goes on and he says, our people forgot a lot of things in order to survive. We even went beyond forgetfulness. Think we were born on the water. To forget, I'm talking about the water of slavery, not the water generally. Difference between in slavery's wake and the water being the conduit that we came out of. We came out the water. That goes back to the Egyptians. I'm talking about the idea that you was born on a boat. Not born where you came from when you were human trafficked, but born into the damn fire. If you do that, of course, everything you remember is going to be fire. You're suppressing your own natural proclivity. So he goes on one more time and says, we even went beyond forgetfulness to forget thoroughly the shattering and the dispersal of a people that was once whole. We have gone so far as to pretend we have always been these silly little fragments, each calling itself a nation. The young man says, is forgetfulness natural? The healer says, it is natural, but only for a while, not for all time. Forgetfulness helps the diseased cross over the time of greatest pain. It is a sort of sleep, like the sleep brought on by herbs to help a sick person rest when their disease has exhausted them. In that case, forgetfulness works toward health. But when the period of forgetfulness is prolonged unnaturally, you want to talk about curriculum battles? Tomorrow in the New York Times, Ross Dohat, a white Christian nationalist, a Catholic fascist nationalist, writing for the New York Times. He and Brett Stevens trade off between the hardcore white nationalists and the soft white nationalists. New York Times will be an interview will be published that Dave Canton, my brother who's down at the University of Florida, Gainesville, who called in Sirius XM yesterday to talk to Lamont and I about this because he saw the digital version first as I did, but the print version will be out tomorrow's New York Times. Dohat is in conversation with Christopher Rufo, a small man, a broken bone in the body of humanity, who has been the chief weapon to be tried to use as a cudgel against African people. And he is obsessed with this concept of critical race theory, although by the interview, it doesn't appear that he understands very much about it, because the people he's quoting, Ibram Kendi and Robin DiAngelo, are not critical race theorists. He doesn't take on the real critical race theorists, because I understand Christopher Rufo, whatever his gifts that he came here with, one of them doesn't seem to be the ability to grasp deep concepts, or at least the ability to articulate them in a way, because he is trying to manipulate your body. He's a manipulator, not a healer. He's a manipulator, not an inspirer. He's not looking to inspire humanity. He's looking to manipulate them. He's looking past the spirit of our common humanity and embracing the idea that I can just move people around like pieces on a chessboard. You know, Christopher Rufo, of a piece with Andrew DeSantis, of a piece with Donald Trump, of a piece with Elon Musk, of a piece with all these people who say, F your spirit, I'm looking to move your body around. It is the source of capitalism. It is the source of exploitation. It is the source of the idea that forget your spirit, I'm trying to move your body around. It's why we're having this conversation in English right now. because people who did not speak to their spirit, but rather to their fears, to their deep insecurities, human trafficked other people who were their parents. And in that trauma, we suppressed our long memory in favor of a survival tactic, but it was a tactic that allowed us to gather ourselves enough to fight back enough from our deep humanity. The forgetfulness proved to be a weapon, a tool for a moment, but it is a function that is akin to sleep. And as the healer says here, forgetfulness is a sort of sleep, like the sleep brought on by herbs to help a sick person rest when their disease has exhausted them. The disease of white supremacy, the disease of the nation state, goes on and says, in that case, forgetfulness works toward health. So it's okay to wrap yourself in a flag for a minute. It's okay to say that our founding fathers include George Washington for a minute, because it's going to get you toward health, but it's a sleep moment. He goes on and says, but when the period of forgetfulness is prolonged unnaturally, we're better than that. America, we're better than that. When it's prolonged unnaturally, now you've lost your children. You lost yourself because you don't believe that shit is coming out of your mouth. Now you done turned against the Africans who come from other places, who are coming from equally artificial boxes called nation states, who have contempt for you because they have contempt for themselves they've been taught to have, and you've got contempt for them because you think that little nation state, that broken bone, is the thing, and it's not. It's breaking you. You are supposed to be together. We go on and says, but when the period of forgetfulness is prolonged unnaturally, then it doesn't work toward health, it works toward death. Young man says, but if forgetfulness is natural, what is there for healers to do? Education. Goes on and says, they can be ready to help in the awakening to life when the time comes. Learn the signs of life. Learn how to work with life against death. I'm going to stop there. You read the healers for the rest of it. Not this version, though. Don't look for this one. Go to per Ankh and get the one that we control. The idea, then, that this week 6 of Hell Week, number 261 of our weekly conversations, emptying into this larger effort at understanding, of restoring, of healing, would allow us to remember what we already have. You understand? To connect that to the method of learning language, to allow us to connect what we already have through method. That is the Africana Studies method. It's a language that allows us to train our ears to hear, as Lister Belt Middleton says. Sharpen your ear so you understand what you hear. In his poem on the origin of things, you got to understand to do that. So yeah, Al Green stood, the censure was there, no problem. It ain't the first time somebody lifted a cane in the federal legislature. In 1856, it was Preston Brooks out of South Carolina that beat the hell out of Charles Sumner. This ain't the first time somebody raised a stick in the Congress, except Al Green ain't hit nobody. He hit everybody, though, with a moral challenge. Al Green ain't doing enough for his congressional district. Al Green, here come the broken bones. But in that moment, did you get the inspiration? Did you get the inspiration? Not the manipulation, the inspiration. If you listen, you can hear red, black, and green. That's what stood up right there. If you think about it, you know what I mean. I was going through some files the other day, and this didn't make it to storage, and I'm glad it didn't, because I can show y'all. Now, this is an issue of The Black Politician, which was a journal put out by Mervyn Donnelly. This is from 1971, the second year of publication. Eventually, Mervyn Donnelly put together a book called The Black Politician, which collects articles from this journal. This is from the early days. It was started in 1969. It's around the same time the Congressional Black Caucus was started. Look at the articles. Nixon and the Black Caucus, revenue sharing, perspective on Africa, legislative record of Adam Clayton Powell revisited. Look at this. The role of the Black University. I've talked about this before. Look who wrote it. Shirley Chisholm. Black professor goes to campus. That's Perrin Mitchell. Perrin Mitchell came out of Maryland. These are members of the Congressional Black Caucus. Look at this. El Partido La Raza Unida Chicanos in Politics. There's no natural, there's no black brown unity with the black brown. You vomit, projectile vomit. Not as forceful as what we saw coming out of the mouth of the orange clown on Tuesday night, but projectile vomit nonetheless. Well, there's no black and brown unity. That is someone who is asleep. He's asleep of forgetfulness. You've forgotten even 50 years ago. In this Black Politician Journal, where you see someone writing about Chicanos in politics. We could go on, but I'm not going to go on. Well, I'll mention one other by another ancestor, Politics Southern Style, May King. May King, who was a longtime faculty member at Howard University, who was actually on my tenure committee, the great May King. I love that sister, political scientist. But I'm saying that it made me think about that because in the context of the Black politician, we have to remember that what we saw this week from the Congressional Black Caucus, it could do with a lot more remembering, with unblocking the memory. Al Green stood there. I mean, when Al talked to Lamont and I a couple of weeks ago, we came to the studio. We sitting there in Joe Madison's studio, the Black Eagles Nest. And, he's like, I remember Jim and Jane Crow. I remember going around to the back to have to get something to eat. I remember the indignities. I grew up in New Orleans. So I don't care only about policy. I don't care at all about Democrats or Republicans or independents. I don't care about political parties in that process. That's all, details that we have to work out. But what I'm thinking about is the inspiration in that moment. I'm thinking about the inspiration of the fact that when he stood up, by then, all these Black people who are visible mostly in white-facing media, but also in some Black-facing media, not Black-owned, but Black-facing. Everybody from the Breakfast Club people to Joy Reid and Teray and all these different people had done, by then, they were in the double digits of a 24-hour attempt to talk about the state of our union that began on 12:01 on Tuesday morning, continued through 11:59 on Tuesday night. And that was an attempt, to do something positive, and I'm for it. I'm inspired by that. Clay and Reese took an hour on that 24-hour shift. And of course, when Al Green raised that cane, I was down with Roland Martin and everybody else down at the Black Star Network, which is an actual studio right there at the B at Black Lives Matter Plaza. And by the way, take it up out the street. Understand, Mayor Bowser, you're doing what you think is best. I understand that. Guess what? Take plenty of pictures, and now let's start putting posters up everywhere in the city. You took it off 16th Street. Now we're going to put it in your mouth. Red, black, and green. Except don't even make it yellow on black. Now make it red, black, and green. Because if you think about it, you'll know what I mean. Black Lives Matter is important. Black Lives Matter is a movement. Black Lives Matter is inspirational. Black Lives Matter should not be contained to the forgetfulness and the trauma of captivity. Let's put some red, black, and green on it. Because if you think about it, you'll know what I mean. Taking it up off the street might just be the best thing that can happen. In fact, I want these young people, get that picture of John Lewis standing in Black Lives Matter Plaza, remix it, put it in red, black, and green, and pick it on a big-ass poster. And when that orange clown wake up and look across the street and that big-ass poster is looking him in the face, red, black, and green, if you think about it, as you consume your Big Mac and sit on your gold-plated toilet in 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue and try to run through your entrails the fast food that is killing you, I want you to understand that we ain't even thinking about you. To quote Sean Carter, we're not looking at you dudes, we're looking past you. Our memory has been restored. We are being healed. And so thinking about that 24-hour exercise, Al Green raised his cane in 24 hours. Black people were doing media. And then at the Black Star Network, 6 hours. We got there, started around 7 o'clock. Didn't even show the clown's projectile vomit. William Barber came down. And my man Bill Lamar from Metropolitan AM, I'm gonna say Baptist because we all Baptist, right? But Metropolitan AME Church went and got the portable podium from the Cathedral of African Methodism, the portable pulpit, and brought it to the Black Star Network studios on Black Lives Matter Square. And behind that pulpit, Reverend William Barber gave the state of our union. You can see it because by the time the evening was over, 250,000 people were watching in real time. And then when the live stream went off around 1:30 a.m. on Wednesday morning, 1 million people watched that part, at least there were 1 million views on it. But just like where we are right now on Saturdays, you might see 15, 20, 25, 30, 35,000 people consistently now here throughout the course of a week. But everybody here is not alone. As we see on Mondays and office hours, people come in and, you know, they was in Arizona and on the register, it will say 1, but in reality, it's like 7 people there. So people are watching in clusters. People are being in clusters. It's a fire hose. It's a fire hose of inspiration. And there's a fire, as our brother Rod has said. There's a fire. Very important to understand. Y'all thought it was brilliant too, Who We Are documentary. Because Roland will bust his ass. You giving him them $50 a year subscribing? I know where that money go. And for everybody who's saying Roland Martin's out here making money, yeah, Roland Martin makes money. He ain't got to work for nobody. And guess what? So does all that staff. See, what y'all don't see, and next time I go down there, I'm going to take some video and show you. I'm going to show you the people who are employed because people give money to Black Star Network. The genius producer. Carol, his producer, that's my girl. Carol Gant, she no joke. Carol don't work for everybody. CNN, Carol gets to come every day. She writes the copy, the script, she's managing, and they got an army of young people. Some of them my former students. The young sister who produces the show that I do on the network, The Black Table, she's employed. That's your money. You understand? This money not going. So people say, you suckers, I'm manipulating your bodies. No, this is inspiration. People writing paper checks like my mama would have done. I don't know about no electronic transfer. I'm going to put my immaculate Alabama school, segregated school signature on this paper check and send it there. Just like the people here who subscribe to Knarrative, their money comes in, their money is employing people. See, that's how you build institutions. And that's when they turn off everything, you got somewhere to go. And if you really get ahead of it, well, they got the service now because we're Africans, meaning we got people, you know, the server they created, all the metals that go in them servers, all the electricity that's able to pass through those metals, all that stuff generated out of Africa. If we can remember ourselves, they won't even be able to broadcast. We'll be the only ones broadcasting. The man vomited out his mouth. Nobody knows where Botswana is. Botswana, he mispronounced it. Botswana, 17th largest producer of diamonds in the world. Also Botswana, your little friend up there who finally put a tie around his funky apartheid boar neck. Your friend Musk, he negotiating with Lesotho. Why? Because Lesotho, not Botswana, Lesotho, surrounded by South Africa, where he grew up. Lesotho is the highest base altitude in the world in terms of countries, and he wants his Starlink to have something there to help him project toward the sky. So your little friend up there, your little twisted apartheid friend, he in bed, he want to be in bed with Lesotho while you down here can't pronounce the name because whatever gift you got did not include speech. Didn't include, or if it did, it's been greatly diminished by whoever socialized you to imbibe in whatever it is that your son seems to have had passed on to him. This addiction, whatever the addictions you have had that have diminished your natural capacity to speak. But you can't pronounce Lesotho, no problem, Lesotho. But guess what? Your friend know where it is because he's negotiating with the head of the country right now. But we're not going to get caught up in the projectile vomit of your social structure because we know that that is something else. The Target boycott started this week. We know people in Target is taking an L. You read the Financial Times, you start seeing the sales are going down. And so it's important to understand that we don't need to get distracted. You know, the Government Service Administration put all these sites potentially to sell. They're not selling those sites. People are going to court now. They're not going to sell all those sites. Now, yeah, the building, the federal building named for Rosa Parks in Detroit, the one named for Martin Luther King in Atlanta, and of course, the Freedom Riders Museum building in the bus station where our people got attacked there in Montgomery. We'll see it when we go down there next week. You know, the Muskrats, the Musketeers, Muscle Boy Toys, including this boy, Edward Christine, Little Nuts, I think is his name. On social media. No, not Little Nuts. I'm sorry. That's how I remember it. What's his? Somebody put it in the chat. Anyway, Little Nuts, I thought, but it's not Little Nuts. It may be the opposite. I'm trying to remember. Let's see if anybody here in the Nubia chat or in the YouTube, I say chat, the Mbongi, as I explained why I call it that instead of chat. Try to call it that instead of chat. Anyway, Spike put it there. Yes. Big Boss. He calls himself Big Boss. This is the boy, one of the musketeers who's rooting around in all your personal information, all our personal information, as they try to halve the number of employees at the Internal Revenue Service, as they go through people's Social Security files. You know, not little nuts. Big Boss is what he calls himself. Anytime somebody calls themselves Big Boss, I think we can all know what that means in terms of the actual reality. The point is this, that this boy's grandfather was a KGB agent. Double agent, defected, then defected again. It's a fascinating history, but you know, they put all this property on the list. This is the muskrats. This is the chaos that Steve Bannon was talking about. This is the flashlight beam that the cat is playing with. This is the distraction. This is the distraction. It's not going to happen. Only happens if we let it happen. So yeah, the building named for Rosa Parks in Detroit, the one named for Martin Luther King in Atlanta, and the bus station in Montgomery, all on the list, the GSA list that they then took down. Why? They started taking stuff off the list. Then they took the whole list down because now people are riled up. Terry Sewell, the Shamari figures coming out of Alabama, the two Congress people pushing back. They calling people, because guess what? It's too many of us. Everybody loves the sunshine. You trying to block the sunshine, we will dissolve you, and it won't even be heavy work. That's light work. You keep playing, and what you're revealing is this is going to be easy work. There may be a moment of temporary difficulty as the healers begin to come together, because one of the messages in this book, as Courtney reminded us of on Monday night in Nubia in office hours, is that healers ain't trying to be elected officials. Healers can't be politicians. Healers are dedicated to work that everybody can't do. And that doesn't mean that they are exclusive because they want to be. They're exclusive because that's a difficult work. I know why Courtney, why this is her favorite Aikwe Armah book, because she's a healer. She's absolutely a healer. John Clark was a healer. Randy Weston was a healer. Roy Ayers was a healer. So when you're a healer, you can't help it. Like this boy Densu looking for the other healers, because I got this thing where I'm looking to get everybody to get, where are the rest of my people? You know why people are here week after week, day after day, every day? Because we are looking to be healed, and we have the innate capacity to be healed. And there's a subset of us who are determined to help in a way that everybody is not able to help, nor should everybody have to be able to be helped that way. If you're going to do that work, paint all the Manuel Davidson said, paint all of DC in red, black, and green. Reminds me of George Clinton. Paint the White House black. Yeah. Yeah, get the flashlight. Paint it all in red, black. Do you understand what taking up Black Lives Matter off the street, off a couple of blocks next to the White House could trigger? You ain't gonna just see that sign everywhere else. You could potentially see red, black, and green everywhere. See, we about to start something. See, these people don't know. They don't know nothing about it. So as they renege on Black Lives Matter Plaza, as you see these quote unquote DEI cancellations at the place I went to school at, Ionelli, myself, Mario Beatty, Valethia Watkins, a lot of us went to Ohio State University, Dina Wingard, you know, as they say, they canceling all their programs. Ohio University down the street, Ohio University said they canceling their Black Alumni Weekend, all this kind of thing. Okay, all right, but you ain't canceling Black people. We can't be canceled. You want to pull that up? No problem, because guess what? Keep it up. I want all of it canceled. Cancel it all at Ohio State University, because some of those young people who run up and down your funky ass ball field, some of their parents are healers. Some of their parents will be woken up too. And when that star running back and receiver and quarterback decide they're not going to play for you anymore, and when you come to the house and say, but you, and they respond to you and say, I was asleep, but I'm awake now. We're going to watch Ohio State versus Michigan play like a Pop Warner football team. Meanwhile, Grambling versus Tennessee State, or Southern versus Florida A&M, or Mike Vick's Norfolk State versus Deshaun Sanders Delaware State is going to get all the ratings. Why? Because everybody likes the sunshine. Hell, I might even start watching football. I watch college football. Bill Belichick, you manipulator of bodies. sir. I'm going to build a pro football team in North Carolina. Go get that young girl you going with, and y'all commiserate on this for a minute. There's North Carolina A&T. Are you young people out here who listening, who mama drugged them, or daddy or uncle or auntie drug you in on Saturday to listen to us have conversation, and you thinking this is too much, this is too much? Be inspired by this. The thought of North Carolina A&T playing South Carolina State for the national championship. Yeah? And you could help that. My niece, who's one of the top hurlers in high school in the country, is not running for the University of Texas. She's running for North Carolina A&T in the fall. You see why I'm rocking this? Let's be very clear. Inspiration goes a long way. Shout out to Eden Fuller, my niece, to her father, Randy Fuller, my sister, her mother, Gussie Fuller. Let's be very clear about that. You can make different choices when you're awake. Aggie pride. So, Elon Musk called an emergency cabinet meeting. Little Marco vomiting on the couch, looking silly. Elon Musk yelling at Marco, all this drama, this telenovela bullshit. They're offering citizenship to Boers and white nationalists out of South Africa to come to the United States. All distractions. We fight them, but this ain't the primary purpose of our life. In fact, yesterday, I was down at Bridge Street Books, and let me see if I can find it quickly. If I can't find it quickly, I'm not going to talk about it, but I think I can find it pretty quick. Yeah, here it is. This is a new book. I just got this. This will be a short read, actually. This came out late last year. This book is about, without the notes, it's about 120 pages without the acknowledgments and notes. It's called Offshore by Brooke Harrington. Brooke Harrington's book, Offshore. Stealth Wealth and the New Colonialism. I just want to see if I can find this quickly. Page 37. I was in the store reading it, and I said, I'm just going to read it. It's funny. Going in bookstores in many ways is like legal shoplifting. If it's a book you don't want to read, you can sit there and read the book. You're putting the words in your mind if you're paying attention, and then you leave the book in the bookstore. But I like to keep books too, so I got to reread. This is what it says on page 37 and in the chapter, A Platform for Elite Insurgency. It says, he starts with Howard Schultz, who owns Starbucks. Says, of course, Schultz is by no means unique in this regard. He's just one of a whole cohort of contemporary billionaires beset by what even the pro-business stalwart Financial Times, the paper there, described with evident exasperation as, quote, convenient amnesia, unquote, about the public investment that made their private wealth possible. Other examples include the vast fortunes of Google founder Sergey Brin and Larry Page, whose search engine development idea was funded in its infancy by tax dollars allocated by the U.S. National Science Foundation and built atop the taxpayer-financed internet, originally created as a communication system for the Department of Defense. Here's where I'm going. It says, similarly, securities industry analysts note that Elon Musk is a billionaire only because of the massive taxpayer subsidies he has received. A CNN report estimates that between 2008 and 2019, Musk benefited from at least $6.7 billion in federal cash infusions and regulatory credits to support his businesses, which were frequently on the verge of bankruptcy. I built all these businesses, and Marco, be quiet. You haven't fired enough people. Little Nuts, Grape Nuts is over here. I'm going to sell all the buildings. Where you going, little boy? You're not the president. Get up here. So I built all these successful businesses, and now I'm going to build. You just like your friend Trump. Y'all be running businesses in the ground, and then you took my tax money and got another restoration of life. Goes on and says Musk benefited between 2008 and 2019 from at least $6.7 billion in federal cash infusions and regulatory credits to support his businesses, which were frequently on the verge of bankruptcy. Without that public assistance, quote, Musk wouldn't be the richest person in the world, and quote, one securities analyst told CNN, quote, it was really U.S. taxpayers that helped get him through his roughest time, end quote. See his rockets falling out the sky. Anyway, yet true to form, Musk used aggressive wealth management techniques in order to pay little or no tax for years. while vehemently opposing any legislation that might require billionaires to pay their fair share. For many elites like him, freedom mostly means the liberty not to be taxed. I'll finish that book today. The point I'm making here is that while he's going around talking, he can fire anybody, while Trump projectile vomits out his mouth Tuesday night that he is the one running Doge, which means then that the ACLU filed a lawsuit the next day quoting Trump, saying, yeah, he lied about that lady being in charge. It's really Musk. We all know it's Musk. But the point is that then him calling the Senate together. This fool had pizza party in the basement of the Capitol yesterday with senators. Republican docile senators who clearly have perhaps read but don't understand or don't care about the U.S. Constitution that says there are 3 branches of government. Right now, there aren't 3 branches of government. There's about 1.5 if the courts kind of act right. Well, I'm going to close in a minute. We'll talk more about that in a second. But he's telling them at this meeting that he can not only fire people, but if somebody wants somebody pulled off the list, to call him. He's proposing privatizing Amtrak. I rode Amtrak every week for 10 years between Philly, my adopted home, and DC, where I work still. You know what the prices are going to be as they privatize everything? Hell, Megabus just got bought, and all the damn prices on Megabus. If y'all know the cheap bus rail, those prices have exploded. Why? Because privatizing gonna drive the price up, not down. And so he's talking about privatizing and then set a $1 limit on agency cards, federal agency cards. So now the NSF know it. People can't order equipment. They are literally trying to disrupt the entire federal apparatus. And here is the message. This is a white man's country, a rich white man country. There are no rules where grifting is the coin of the realm. Did you know this week that them boxes that Donald Trump's ass should be in jail about? Where's Merrick Garland? Somewhere sitting on the beach writing his memoir. If y'all buy Merrick Garland's memoir, I want your name so we can have a conversation, so we can help heal you from your mental illness. I'll have the memoir at some point because I know he's somewhere writing it, but I'd be damned if I'm gonna pay for it. I'll get it at a library sale. Maybe I'll pay for it for $1 because God knows it's gonna be there. So that great affirmative action hire, the only DEI in the world is whiteness. Merrick Garland should have put Donald Trump ass in jail, put Jack Smith on his ass 5 minutes after he got sworn in. But we know Merrick Garland ain't built like that. Ask Barack Obama. He knew he was harmless. That's why he nominated him to be on the Supreme Court. But even that wasn't enough for Mitch McConnell, who can't cry in the money from his Kentucky bourbon because Canada then took all the Kentucky bourbon off the shelf. Anyway, the point is this. Garland could have got him, but he didn't. Did you know this week that Donald Trump took them same boxes he was in trouble about back to Mar-a-Lago? You heard correctly. Look it up for yourself. This is a white man's country. We do what we want. You know how much him and his Soviet let me stop. Say Soviet style looking wife Melania made off that Trump mess, that meme coin mess in January, the straight swindle. And here we are, Financial Times this morning reporting that as he talked about setting up this Bitcoin reserve, all of it's a straight grift. And Musk down there where you're sitting United States senators talking about, you want your man's pull off the list? Call me. Call Grape Nuts. Grape Nuts can get them off the list. In other words, this is what we're talking about at this point. But there is pushback. There is pushback. You see the federal courts pushing back. I'm not going to go through that line by line, although they mad as hell at the handmaid. They mad at Amy Coney Barrett, who apparently is trying to act like she's a judge. If you read the opinion from this week, Amy Coney Barrett voted to say, no, you can't just run roughshod. That money's been encumbered. That money needs to be dispersed. You need to release that federal money. Congress allocated that money. It has been encumbered, and therefore it must be released. Amy Coney in 5-4. John Robertson torn up the Supreme Court, the Chief Justice. And now he's worried about the institution. You should have been worried when you decided how you decided in Citizens United. Alito and Thomas, they are wholly owned subsidiaries of these billionaires. So they're going to do what their masters tell them to do, which, as far as I think, will include, at least for Thomas, who's the more malleable of the two, because I think Sam Alito is a straight Christian fascist nationalist. So I call him the Christian soldier. No different than that clown they put over the Pentagon, Hegseth, as they switched the name to Fort Bragg in North Carolina this week. And as he vomited out of his mouth, they're going to change Fort Moore back to Fort Benning. Fort Benning, you can't find a service person named Benning to say that's who you naming it for, to give yourself a fig leaf. They done gone full white nationalists and say, no, we're returning it to the Confederate name down there in Georgia. But the point I'm trying to make is that the courts are pushing back. They mad at Comey Barrett because Comey Barrett went with Roberts, and in 5-4, they said, you got to give the money up. You got to know, Trump, that's not your money. The Congress said the money has to be paid, and it's for bills that have already been come due. Now, we understand Trump. We understand Musk. Y'all don't pay y'all bills. That's why you're both failures in business. And we've been bailing y'all asses out forever. In Musk's case, direct federal taxpayer money. But just the United States government, and if we're going to still be a government, as I begin to wind to close here, I'm going to close with Joseph Nye in a moment, who's writing in today's Financial Times about soft power. He's the one coined the term 30 years ago. And this is what the United States is spending now as the rest of the world looks like. Is it time? We're getting ready to roll them over? Yeah, because empires fall. We thought this one would take another 30 or 40 years, maybe 20 years, but it's actually going to happen in about the next couple of months. Let's make our move. So people be very careful about this, because the things we need to listen to aren't the things that are right in our face, the pain, the trauma that engendered the forgetfulness. It is the deeper sounds, the Randy West and Roy Ayers sounds that they were listening to. It is the larger sounds we must listen to now. It's the sounds that we are moving week after week, day after day in spaces like this to continue to amplify, to continue to lower the noise so that we can all hear with our natural ability to hear. That's what we are after. But in this moment, the noise that is coming, we're going to close, we're going to sell, we're going to close, we're going to sell. There is pushback, because people understand that if you do that, you're going to wreck even the illusion of the United States of America, because the people who live in this country are not a people. They come from different groups of people. The only thing holding this together is the negotiated, compromised, transactional commitment to allow us to live. The minute you break that social contract, you call it, that racial contract dimension of it, that is extolled by people like, well, who wrote that? The philosopher. Somebody will put it in the chat. The book, Charles Mills, my man Charles Mills, Jamaican philosopher who made transition last year. But they mad at Amy Coney Barrett because Barrett is realizing, it seems, at least in the short term, like Roberts, that y'all getting ready to break this thing for real. And all we have to do is follow the rules that were written and not ignore the rules as you're ignoring them. And we might be able to pull it back from complete inner collapse, because the world is moving away from the United States as they can. And the Ukraine, as the United States says they're going to start deporting Ukrainians now, as the United States is closing embassies all over the world, as the United States says, give up half your as Trump says, give up half your mineral wealth in a straight transactional move, because that's what he knows. And if you take him from the world of business to the world of government, we all know how that's going to end up. As we see the Five Eyes Consortium, if you know what the Five Eyes Consortium is, that is Australia, Canada, New Zealand, the United Kingdom, and the United States. Well, guess what? The consortium, the other four countries, New Zealand, Australia, the United Kingdom, what they are saying now, and Canada, especially Canada. There's a whole article in today's New York Times. Do I have today's New York Times? Of course I do. Where did I put it is the question here. It's Saturday's New York Times. If you look at today's New York Times, you'll see now that, Canadian elections are coming up, and they actually did a decent job of putting, here we go. Here's the lady, Chrystia Freeland, who Justin Trudeau put out the government, his liberal government. She's running to be the head of the Liberal Party. Here's the guy they think is going to win to be Mark Carney, who will probably be leading the Liberal Party, whose fortunes are looking real good now because Canada done got its nationalists back up, and they saying, they may win this election. He might be the new prime minister of Canada, and they gonna force the United States to back up. But the so-called, what they call the Five Eyes Consortium, the four other countries are now saying, you know what, we're gonna have to withhold some of this intelligence reports from the United States. So we share intelligence. This is the group, they white nationalist governments who, we got to keep the world order the way it is. Well, now they like, Tulsi Gabbard, are you serious? We can't give her, you know what? We'll still have meetings. We'll still kiki. But we can't tell them everything we know. because you got Grape Nuts, whose granddaddy was a KGB agent, then working for the CIA, then working for the KGB again, then working for CIA, and then was in love with somebody in Canada and went up there, and then she rejected him, then she defected again. Well, his grandson, Lil Nut, Grape Nuts, or whatever his name is in there with Musk, and they going through all the stuff. And Tulsi Gabbard, we can't give them intelligence. So yeah, they moving away from it now. In Mexico, Sheinbaum is on a roll. Claudia Sheinbaum is moving. We talked about her in the run up to the election. Again, the reason you come week after week, the reason we're here week after week is not to do deep dives, but Prof. Hunter said this from the beginning: breadcrumbs to inspire, to give enough of a peek, to collect conversation. That's what the Mbongis in both Nubia and in YouTube are. Mbongis. People are putting their information in. People are putting direct links in. I go back and look at them, and then in preparation for Monday night, and then we continue in the conversation. That's what we're doing. And so Brazil, today's Financial Times, and I don't know if I want to get too deep into this right now, but I read an article in here about how, give me a second, y'all, how Brazil, this is, the premier of Ireland is coming to the White House this week, and they're going to talk some crap. Oh, here we are. Brazil to scrap import duties on basic foods in bid to head off price rises. Brazil is to axe import duties on foodstuffs from sugar to sardines in a bid to control rapidly rising prices, running counter to U.S. President Donald Trump's protectionist onslaught and the specter of trade wars it has evoked. Brazil has the largest economy in Latin America. This fool here talking about taxing people with tariffs, and I mean taxing us. By the way, that walk back was going to happen. So people saying, oh, they're going to tax, Yeah, he's going to try to get away with it. The China one, yeah, and that's going to hurt. But Canada and Mexico, that was always going to happen. He violated the treaty that he wrote, that his people wrote after they revived and or renewed, edited and renewed the NAFTA treaty. That's Bill Clinton in them. But my point is this: in Brazil, they're saying, okay, you talking about tariffs? We're dropping any import tax. We're going to keep these prices low. Brazil is in the BRICS. What happens when people around the rest of the world, it's the largest economy in Latin America, they say not only no tariffs, nothing, bring the food. We keeping the prices low. That's Lula da Silva. Guess what? You can't overthrow the Brazilian government. You're going to have a hard enough time trying to figure out between Tulsi Gabbard and your Christian soldier friend over there, Hexeth, in the Pentagon, and that fool you done put over the FBI, whose building you done put on a damn list because Grape Nuts said it need to be on the list. You're going to have a hard enough time turning the lights on in your gold toilet plated house on Pennsylvania Avenue, your damn public assistance housing living MF, with you worried about a Black Lives Matter sign and the rest of the world trying to figure out how to lower prices by lowering tariffs. Is this the harbinger of people around the world deciding, hey, Brazil, not a bad idea. Let's drop the tariffs. Let them put tariffs up. In fact, go ahead, Trump, do it. We're about to break your economy like balsa wood. It's the end of the American empire. Meanwhile, any American Negro who is still asleep and traumatized to the point where you wrapping yourself in an American flag, talking about cutting yourself off from the rest of that, you are literally putting the knife in your throat, not to your throat. So in China, they continue to open the embassies. Communist Party had their meeting this past week. And of course, that's a straight authoritarian thing. Xi Jinping got that on lock. Understand? In Africa, you know, many of the African folk were here this week in the DMV for this Powering Africa Summit, where some fool from the United States government went over there and told them the future of the world is in fossil fuels. These people are increasingly absurd and desperate. I was in a barbershop this week. I go to different barbershops around, you know, they go different places to be in different conversations, but the one I go to where is mostly brothers from the continent who are cutting hair, you know, asking them about Trump. Let's talk. And it was very interesting because, you know, I have a lot of friends who are Continental Africans who are having this same conversation. You got Continental Africans saying Trump is good. I'm sure we've heard that. There are people here who got people in their family. There's people who might even say that and believe that. And I'm not against them. I want to hear it. And I understand the rationale. At least one of the rationales is if he's in here and withdrawing, it gives us a chance to recover. This whole thing about USAID being collapsed, if they get away with it, and it's not at all sure because people are being restored as we speak, as courts coming in saying you can't fire them people, as courts coming in saying you got to spend that money. The money has been unblocked. It's being unblocked. Well, they're saying if the aid comes out, we're going to have to figure out how to be self-sufficient. Now, of course, China is there. Now, of course, in West Africa, you got everybody from the Lebanese and the Syrians, everybody else is there. Russia horning its way in. In the Sahel, whether it be Burkina Faso and Mali, they're trying to figure out how you put France out, but here come China, here come Russia, here come the Syrians, here come everybody. Okay, if you can keep these other predators at least at bay, because they come and say, oh, USAID is not giving you money, we'll give you money. Hold on. This is a moment where Africa may be able to figure its way out of some of the most direct forms of colonial domination. And I'm sitting there talking with these brothers in the barbershop, and one good brother, my man, who was Ghanaian, he was like, look, this is a chance for us to get out from under the thumb of the United States in terms of this tit we've been sucking or forced to suck for decades. But only if we can curb the elites, the rich people, the rich Africans in our country who are predators, some of whom were at this meeting in DC. So what Trump is doing is playing with a very fragile world order, world social structure. The United States has been at the center of that structure, at least since the end of the Second World War, beginning in the early 20th century, but that thing is over. And they're accelerating it. Can the United States ever be different? And this is where I'll stop. It's 150. We're on for an hour and 52 seconds, about maybe about 10 or 15 more minutes, but I'm going to put my timer on. I mentioned this in office hours on Monday night. The article was in the New York Times Magazine. I'm not going to get it last week on Denmark. And the writer is saying Denmark has the most liberal country in the world. Socialized medicine, pretty much. Free education from kindergarten through graduate school with stipends when you go to college, $900 a month. All this, subsidized housing, this kind of thing. Why? And they said that, well, it's all working, but what they say is that the one thing that they are not liberal on is immigration. Their immigration rates, about 10% of the people who live in Denmark are not from Denmark. That number is rising, but very slowly because they're not for immigration like that. The argument is that because they are not for immigration, they are being assailed by other liberal countries, so to speak, and saying, see, y'all are racist. And they know what we are is culturally homogenous enough to understand that if all the people come from the same general cultural base, those who are very rich will feel less reticence to invest in taxation, social structure that will enable everyone to have a floor of standard of living. This shared sacrifice becomes a lot easier with cultural homogeneity. That's important. The United States is never going to be culturally homogenous. A great deal of the reason people say, well, I don't want my money going to welfare. First of all, you're on welfare. Second of all, your money not going anywhere. Third of all, the money from people who don't look like you in the states that have more money than you is subsidizing your ability to have that ham sandwich you had this morning so that you could vomit out your mouth that you don't want your money going somewhere. But you have been so deeply disease infected by the broken bone of racism that you think that you're not like those people. Everybody love the sunshine. You and that person you just called the N-word. But guess what? That person you just called the N-word is thinking to herself red, black, and green. If you think about it, you know what I mean. Nationalism is a disease. Pan-Africanism can be a cure. Pan-Europeanism too often fragments into state nationalism, nativism. That's what MAGA is. It's not a generous pan-Europeanism in a political sense, although culturally it is. That's why they want to quote Shakespeare and the Greeks and things like that. But when you think about Pan-Africanism, that Pan-Africanism can't and should not lead to people retreating to their various African nations. That's what Ron Walters was writing about in his book, Pan-Africanism and the African Diaspora. The Pan-Africanism should be the foundation for a broader generosity, a unity of African people worldwide, red, black, and green. If you think about it, you know what I mean. And out of that, a generosity that overflows even Africans to inform everybody else. This is Du Bois in The Conservation of Races and the rest of his life. We have something to say to the world that will help the world. But see, the problem we have now is that, as that article in the New York Times said, Denmark can do what it does because basically it's a white state. The United States ain't never going to be that. Now, how do you make it different? How do you make it different? My man Ibram Kendi, who's coming to Howard University, was interviewed for an article that appeared in the Chronicle of Higher Education. Shout out to the author of that article, Jasper Smith. who is writing in the article saying, Ibram Kennedy's coming to Howard. How's the faculty feel? I'm saying we don't do anti-racism. It's important work, but that's not what we do in Africana. We're too busy recovering our memory to be grounding everything we do in being anti-racist. Anti-racism is important. It's not our work, though. We'll let y'all handle that. We're looking to hear the deeper sounds. Robin DiAngelo, you and Ibram Kendi, y'all can all handle that. And you can argue with Christopher Rufo, and they can talk all the talk they want to. It's WWF wrestling as far as I'm concerned. But this is a tale of two songs. Everybody loves the sunshine. There's a human commodity. There's a human connectivity, not commodity. And Red, Black, and Green allows us to recover our African memory so that we can continue in that contribution to human society. That having been said, we understand that healing means a recovery of memory. So what we have to do, we have to train ourselves to see. That means what we're doing now, this regular drum beat, this regular metronome of conversation, we got to continue to convene. Inspiration, not manipulation. Not come to us, join Jeff Rowe. No. Inspiration, breadcrumbs. We have to turn off the noise. Social media can kill us because it weaponizes the noise. We have to get involved locally, nationally. At Black Star Network Tuesday night, we're there. Tiffany Deneen Lofton, while we're in Montgomery, she's going to be here in the DC area with all of these high school and college students, college age students, convening students to talk about leadership and development and community work because it starts locally. There's some students from Florida A&M. Shout out to the Rattlers, strike and strike again, who wanted to come but couldn't get the money. They're trapped down there behind the cotton curtain in the plantation style philosophy and politics of that pufferfish governor of Florida. So the money can't be encumbered for them to travel. And in the space of an hour, my man, Will Packer, a FAM graduate whose daughter is a Howard University graduate. The good brother Will Packer, rolling text Will right there. He's FAM alum, right? Between the times Tiffany said that around 11 o'clock or 11:30 on Tuesday night, and the time we came off the next morning, nearly $100,000 had been raised. So all those young people coming from FAM and all those young people come from other places. Everybody give a little, nobody gives a lot, whether it be a subscription to Knarrative, whether it be some stock in fan base, whether it be a contribution to the Black Star Network, whether it be some money that you put on so that a kid could get here to think about doing local work and empowerment work. Please understand that money that you didn't spend in Target that you sent is going to send a Norfolk State Spartan or someone from Florida A&M or someone from Stillman or Oakwood or someone from Miles College or someone from Bishop Isaac Lane College in West Tennessee or somebody from Paul Quinn College or Bishop's gone. My God, Bishop should not be gone. Or Lincoln University of Pennsylvania, or Lincoln, Missouri. That money will enable someone who didn't have those small resources to come together. And I don't care how many $1 billion we gave you to stay afloat, Elon Musk or Donald Trump, how many fake ass meme coins based on some bullshit that you and your wife are able to steal from. It can't overwhelm our collective humanity, red, black, and green. If you think about it, you know what I mean. And so the idea that as we're organizing in our governance formations, as we're bringing that together, we also continue to fight from our base, our renewed base, into the strength. And our strength is really the strength of that governance formation in our African Studies framework. As I was reading through the Department of Education lawsuit, the lawsuit that was filed by the American Civil Liberties Union this week, the ACLU and the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. No, the National Education Association. Very interesting, arguing that the Department of Education can't do what it's trying to do. The Secretary of Wrestling, Linda McMahon, who is saying that, you're going to collapse it from within. It needs to be shut down. And they sued, say you can't do that. Why? Because remember that Chevron defense that y'all kicked the teeth out of last year, Supreme Court? We talked about that here. Basically says that Congress has to pass the law. You can't interpret it at the administrative departmental level those administrative, those, those secretariats in the United States, Secretary of Education, Secretary of Health and Human Services. You can't do it there. It's got to be done either by Congress or the courts will interpret. Well, guess what? Since you want to do it that way, the Department of Education, it applies to you too. You can't make those arbitrary judgments. I'm sitting back like, oh, that's a great use of that doctrine. You know what I want? As we see Trump saying he's going to stop $400 million from going to Columbia and federal funding through various things. As I was reading an article in the New Yorker that came out this week about Harvard and the evisceration of DEI work at these places, Junior Varsity Vance wanted to tax all these billion-dollar endowments at 35%. I thought you were against taxes. No, I'm trying to destroy the university. Guess what? We jailbroke the university. You can't destroy us because we got $3, we got $50, we got $3,000, we got 35 cents, and we putting a chip of it into here. It has been jailbroken, friend. And we are going to, from our community base, infuse our other institutions with the resources they need. Give to those Black colleges, enhance the Black churches that are doing the Saturday schools, some of which are using in class right now. If you're in one of those places that are using this as your Saturday school, please understand that this is why we are here. And that you can't touch that, Junior Varsity. Good job on not wearing as much mascara on Tuesday night, by the way, Junior Varsity, you parvenu hillbilly, right? Another elegy. And so the takeaway is that, these people want to control the world based on how they view it. And our self-defense is a way station toward a vision of wholeness. Our defense is a vision of, is a way station. This is why I think Angie Porter, what she's doing with Africana Legal Studies, if you haven't downloaded her article, Poison, please do so. We can drop the links in both of the emboggies. We did that on Monday night. Please do it in the YouTube side. Angie Porter's article Poison came out last week. Minnesota Journal of Law and Justice. You can find it. Just look up Angie Porter Poison with a exclamation point. And she did that intentionally, like Belle Biv DeVoy, right? Poison, poison, poison. Yeah, indeed. But she's talking about how these Africans, this is her second article in the Africana Legal Studies theory she's developing, grounded out of that Africana Studies conceptual category framework. Out of our power, we decide what's best for us. And she's looking at how African people use their use of science and technology and their ways of knowing in a governance formation to attack the very social structure that had them captive. They carrying out death penalties. Not like what we saw in South Carolina, where they used a firing squad yesterday to carry out death penalty. Not like what Meemaw, the governor of Alabama, pulled back from the execution of the brother there, the Black man. There's no evidence that he committed this murder, and an 11-to-1 white to Black ratio jury said, well, many of them was like, he's not guilty, but since y'all want to kill him anyway, the best we can do is recommend life. Our sentence is life without possibility of parole. The judge overturns it, says kill him, and one of the white women jurors writes the governor like, we really didn't want him. We thought he was not guilty, but we knew that, we living in a state where they gonna kill him, so at least give him life. And Meemaw pulled back. You ain't doing us no favors. You need to let that man go. We need a space. And so let's just take a moment and think about the fact, and by the way, Monday night on office hours, we're going to finish up Ikwara, the Eloquence of the Scribes. Then we're moving to Remember I Need, the second edition of Let the Circle Be Unbroken. And we'll finish up Ways of Knowing, that category. And then we'll move to Science and Technology the following week, our fourth conceptual category in our Africana Studies framework, as we continue in our Introduction to Africana Studies course. Just remember that this fire hose of sorts is indeed palliative. It is healing. And that the fire that it is putting out is not the ultimate destination, but a way station toward that vision of wholeness that Ikwara Arma is always talking about, and that Roy Ayers reminded us of in his music. Everybody loves the sunshine. In order to see that sunshine, you got to dissolve the thing that's blocking it from you. And you know how you're going to dissolve it? Red, black, and green. If you think about it, you know what I mean.
Palliative.
Yeah, it's a palliative.
I love the use of that in this framing. I only know of it through care, having a parent that went through hospice, palliative care. But to think about it from this standpoint, I think is really powerful. I wrote it down. Word of the day next week. You're going to hear it again on the show. Also, can you ring the bell for Dwayne Wiggins?
Yes.
Tony.
Tony has done it again. Yes.
And also, we're springing forward, so we're going to lose an hour. So be very mindful of your time as we
Indeed.
get to more.
That's true.
Yes.
Did you see that? Did you see? I mean, just generally in the sense of being human. How about Gene Hackman's wife makes transition, and ain't nobody there to care for him, so he right after her. That's got to be what happened. If we can take what the report, right?
I mean, he has Alzheimer's, so
He had
also,
Alzheimer's.
Maybe there was no one there to care for him. The medicine, or just we need each other.
It probably is just that.
But it took a neighbor to come and do a check.
It took a neighbor.
So we also got to be in community.
Professor Carr. Hunter, ain't that a lesson? If you there and ain't nobody there, and it took a neighbor even to find them. But black folk gonna check on you. I ain't seen no light on last night.
That's right.
Did you come? I mean, I mean, my God, what a lesson. A simple, if that's indeed, but oh my gosh.
Still more coming out. Also, the global majority drop ends this weekend. So those of you who
the drop is there.
Yeah. We honor Fannie Lou Hamer.
Freedom is shackling chains to mine. And until I'm free, you are not free either.
Trying to bring us all together.
There you go.
Under this notion that our freedom is inextricably tied to one another. That we cannot do this thing without each other. And it's important, that message, I think.
That was Fannie Lou.
Yeah.
We get people to realize.
Yeah. So Ron Finley, we're doing some things. So I appreciate everybody that's supporting the podcasts that are out there, because that allows us to be very intentional. They're telling us where we should have our eyeballs, and they're flooding. They're doing a fire hose as well of nonsense. Right. And we're involved in fights and different, conflicts and all of this stuff. It's on purpose. It's a distraction while they keep their hands in our pockets.
Come on now.
Yes. So we have to be intentional and let them know what we support. Even if you ain't listening, just click on the stuff, because that sends a message that then gives us more power to do more things. And
That's all.
Have power to do more things. That's
all.
That's it.
Let me I said I was going to mention this, and I know somebody probably heard me say that, so I just want to show y'all right quick before we go, because we're done now. But there was an article in today's Financial Times in the Life and Art section. It's called "Is This the End of Soft Power?" And of course, Joseph Nye, who coined that term. People talk about soft power now. Political scientists, political theorists wrote about that. And the gist of the article is very simple. This internal white nationalist nativist attack is diminishing the idea of soft power of the United States around the world. We kind of talked about it, but I wanted to just end with look at this artwork. You see, this is the artwork that Bill Butcher did, the illustration. Look at to your point, Professor Hunter. This isn't just distractions. This is soft power. NBA, McDonald's, NFL, Levi's, Coca-Cola, all movies. So the eagle is literally spread around the world this way. But guess what? What is the message that these white nativists are sending to all these people around the world now about what this place is? People kind of know, but you can't run from it now. And come on back, Prof. I wanted to mention that because when you said the global majority dropped this week, it reminded me of that, because you've been reminding us steadily. We are a global majority. These people think they're winning. Oh, you tearing up the last part of it. We got more in common with the world. And the world can. Now, we got to be smart now, to your point. We got to make a tactical choice.
Even more. The books, the movies, the TV shows.
Yes.
From the beginning of time, they were pushing these messages of, Black people being lazy and Black people being not human and Black people being. I'm listening to this book about an enslaved woman in the 1800s in England. The same messages, Black people can't. They were playing. Two scientists were testing to see whether a Black person could learn, and it's like at some point some of us embody these things because it's been beaten into us for 400 years. But in our DNA, at the very source code, is the excellence and the greatness. That we have to remind ourselves, which is what we do every Saturday. We have to remind ourselves it's there, and then we got to knock all of the distractions off and the dust and all of it, and walk into our wholeness.
That's
This
right.
is palliative care. I love that.
Palliative care. Love it. Love you. Love everybody. See everybody Monday night.
Yes.
I'm gonna enjoy a little bit of this sunshine because everybody loves the sunshine.
I'm going to walk. I'm gonna
Go do that walk. Go to the sunshine.
Watching the color be out there. Yes.
What is that? Lavender, purple? I like that color on your head. You got it wrapped. The people love your head wraps anyway. So I'm just.
It was a gift. It was a regular scarf that somebody gifted me that I turned into. Because we're creative a little bit.
Yeah, your hair wrap game is on fleck though. I mean, I'm just saying, you got that. Love you.
All right. Bye everyone. Have a blessed weekend.